Troops to Energy Jobs program, part of the Center for Energy Workforce Development. So for tonight's webinar, we have assembled a panel that can provide additional insight into their journey from their military background to careers in the energy industry. I'm excited to spend some time with you this evening, and just a couple of ground rules up front. We are expecting about 100 participants on the webinar, maybe more. And so as we progress through the presentation, we would ask that you add any questions that you have into the chat feature, and then our moderator, in addition to myself, will collect those questions up for a Q&A at the back end. And again, we very much look forward to our time together this evening. The panel that we assembled for tonight, including myself as the moderator, is Ileana Rentz, who's a regional vice president with Pike Electric, Amber Fogarty, a trainings program manager with Consumers Energy, Edwin King, manager of system integrity for Peoples Gas and North Shore Gas, David Merck, who's a senior director with pipelines at the American Petroleum Institute, and Kevin Doffing, veterans program director for American Clean Power. Each of these panelists is active in the industry right now. They are veterans. And again, as I said, they will share their story later when we get to speak with all of them. Amber in particular, she is on storm duty right now. She's located up in the Michigan area, so Amber will not be able to join us tonight, but I'll fill in with the portion that she was to describe in terms of the types of jobs that are available. But that's part of the mission with energy companies, is that you have to respond sometimes when Mother Nature calls. So if you wouldn't mind, please put into the chat what state you are located. I think we have people who are connecting with us from around the country. We have a very short video that will play, but if you would take a moment and put into the chat box where you are located, that'd be really great so we can all get a sense where everyone is. And with that, I'll go ahead and start our short video.
You served your country with dedication. Now serve a purpose that powers the nation's future in energy.
There's a place for every veteran in the energy industry.
Working to bring energy products to the nation, to keep it safe, to keep it secure, and keep it moving.
And it's really the most growth that I think we've seen in a long time.
It still affords me an opportunity to serve.
When I found a home, it was an instant connection.
You too can find a rewarding career in energy. Learn more at www.troopstoenergyjobs.org.
All right, so that was to set the stage. And the natural question is, why the energy industry? Some of our goals for tonight is to share more information about the industry itself, why it's attractive to veterans, let our panelists fill in some additional detail and tell their story, and then also let you become more familiar with the resources that are available to you on the Troops to Energy Jobs website. So the first question is, why the energy industry? I'm a bit of a poster child myself in terms of serving on active duty in nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarines as an officer. I was able to transition into nuclear power generation, and then as well to ride that career to where I am now, actually giving back to the industry through my veteran career coaching opportunity. But the industry itself is pretty vast, employing about 7 million people. Over 600,000 of them work in the generation and transmission of energy, where I ended up landing. And it's really the network and the fabric of the infrastructure of the company. It's a critical resource, whether it's electricity or natural gas that's being supplied. And we are really the fabric of the communities that we serve. And so that has very much a mission focus to it. And as we said, it's a growing industry right now. We are expecting over 32 million people to be added over the next 10 years. I can tell you from the consulting work that I continue to do now, we're seeing tremendous growth, both with the data AI warehouses that are being constructed, which is causing a surge in electricity demand projection, new power plant building, and corresponding transmission and substations across the country, as well as just the general economy continues to expand in parts of the country. The grid's an interconnected web. We also have natural gas, and then we also have the oil and gas pipeline industry that really is one ecosystem that feeds itself, a tremendous opportunity for a career. And that's a lot of what we talk about, is that these aren't just jobs, these are careers. The companies that are in these industries have been around for a very long time, many well over 100 years. They're stable. They don't necessarily are affected as much by the ups and downs of the economy. Layoffs are very rare, and it's just a really stable place to support a career. Highly trained and highly skilled, and many of the skills and experiences that you may have picked up while you're on active duty, or if you transition out since then, are very much applicable, as we'll get into later in the presentation. But it's part of critical infrastructure across the country, and professionals are constantly being sought. So another natural question is, why veterans? As I related a little bit of my story early on, it was a natural fit and transition for me. But some of the things that I picked up in a 30-plus-year career in the industry is that very much focused on safety. Just as we are when we're on active duty and when we're deploying on missions, safety is the most important principle that is held steadfast throughout the industry. And so it's very natural to bring those principles from active duty service or from your time on active duty if you've already transitioned out into the industry. Very much a mission focus. As I mentioned earlier, we are the fabric of the communities that we serve. And so whether it's responding to Mother Nature, as one of our panelists who is scheduled for tonight, Amber, is doing, or expanding the critical infrastructure. People are counting on us to power their homes, to power their businesses, and therefore there's a lot of mission-oriented activities around that. Teamwork. These are, in many cases, large companies, although we do serve everything from very small municipalities or small businesses that are providing services to the industry, all the way up through the very, very large utilities. Some common names across the country you may recognize, depending where you are: the Dukes, the Dominions, the Exelons, the Excels, NextEra, just to name a few of them. But it requires teamwork. And as we learned on active duty, rarely are you able or assigned to get anything done. It's very much aligned with that. And so because of a lot of these reasons, the veterans in the utility and energy industry represent about 11% of the workforce. I can tell you in the exposure I had with my peers across companies, there's several companies that have really focused on veteran hiring, and they're up around the 20% mark. But 11% in and of itself is an average for the industry, is about double the national average of those that have served. And so this industry in particular, not only does it put a lot of effort and focus into bringing veterans in, but it also creates a network where you're going to have people there that have a shared background. They also have a very supportive network. Many of them have employee resource groups where veterans can get together to support the company's missions and objectives. And so for that reason, it's just a great place for a veteran to land, because they're going to have people with similar background, and also find it very welcoming and supportive. But it's not about what I can describe to you, although I will fill in for Amber today, but it's very much about letting our panelists describe not only their background, what their journey has been like in this industry, but then also the types of jobs that they see and that are available. So Amber wants to cover business careers, so I'll touch on that to fill in for her. We're hoping that Ileana Rentz can join us. Ileana is also has some urgent travel going on, so we're hoping that she's able to join us so that she can fill in her part. Edwin King will cover gas industry and renewable careers, David Merck, oil and gas careers, and then Kevin Dopping, some clean energy careers. So that's our panelists, and we'll go ahead and stop sharing the screen right now and go ahead and just let myself and other panelists just kind of speak. So in terms of business careers, and I like to just fill in more of my background story. So I was Navy active duty. I did serve 6 years of active duty, nuclear trained. I was on 2 different types of ballistic missile submarines. I did active patrols in addition to some time in the shipyard. and great start to a career for me. Again, I chose to stay within nuclear power generation, made what I thought was a pretty easy transition, at least with my technical background, into civilian nuclear power generation. But I'll tell you, the transitions are tough. You're used to certain ways that things function when you're on active duty, and then all of a sudden you land in the civilian workforce, and things are different. Although even nuclear that's highly regulated had many procedures and processes. It was just a difficult transition for me as well, getting used to a different kind of structure in terms of leadership, different types of folks that were in the workforce, and really different standards. I would say we're held to a very high standard on active duty, and I had to make some adjustments in order to get work done. But be that as it may, had a chance to get all the way up into the executive ranks in gas electric utility space. Most of that was in nuclear, but last 8 years of my career, I was actually in charge of power generation of all facilities outside of nuclear for the utility that I chose to retire from my corporate career. So if you can think of these companies as they're just large businesses. So in the work that I do right now, where I have literally 80 to 100 or more veterans a month that I have a touch point with, who are using our services, interacting with our database, and asking for my active support. Project management is an area that is used actively within the industry. But beyond things like project management, which may be familiar, supply chain and logistics. Logistics isn't a term you necessarily hear in the utility industry, but supply chain definitely is. And so this is one of the most capital intensive industries that orders all sorts of stuff because much of their mission is about putting assets in the ground, whether it's power poles, pipelines, power plants, et cetera. They buy a lot of stuff. And so everything from procurement to contract administration, they also outsource a great deal of the work that gets done because they can't have that many internal employees. And so everything from contract administration, cybersecurity and physical security, many of these assets and locations are critical infrastructure. And so not only do they have internal security forces, but cybersecurity because of the nature of external threats is something that there's a lot of jobs. Finance, accounting, human resources, engineering. The list just goes on and on of the types of positions that any technically focused company would have, but just in running a large business. So if you think you may not have a natural fit with the energy industry, I'll just give you one example to maybe tell you that there's we believe a place for everyone. One of my peers who's a hiring manager and a recruiter at a different company, he shared the story of someone who was a cook in the service and was interested in getting an engineering career, but really didn't feel that background was going to be adaptable. And so by talking to the individual, looking over the resume, doing a little work with them, started exploring the background and found out, hey, they'd done a little bit of recruiting along the way. They also were in charge of ordering all of the food and supplies, and so they had experiences that were extensions of the rating that they had, and they ended up landing that person as initially a coordinator in a warehouse, and later on that person was able to advance to the supervisor of the warehouse. So you may not think that that's a natural fit for someone that has the rating of a cook. But again, in the work that I do, by exploring your background, and I do want to indeed emphasize leadership. Every company is looking for leadership. The military certainly allows you that opportunity to lead very, very early in your career. And so I work with a lot of veterans to just say, by accentuating the leadership skills and experiences that they've picked up with the immense responsibilities in many cases that people have been exposed to, now it doesn't really matter how long you've been on active duty. That's a selling point for energy industry jobs and careers, and something that you can work with. But that's just a sampling of the types of more general jobs and positions that are available for folks. We'll go ahead and move on to Edwin, because I want to hear his story and what he's going to focus on in terms of the gas and renewable type jobs. But again, there's a place for everyone in energy, and we hope that you can find a match for your particular background with what's available in our sector. But Edwin, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Edwin King, manager of system integrity for Peoples Gas and North Shore Gas. Company that I serve is in Chicago, Illinois, in the Midwest, and North Shore Gas up near. Anybody familiar with the Navy base, Great Lakes? Our service territory is up in that area. Also, the southeastern part of Lake County, Illinois. I been in the gas industry for 36 years. Also retired from the Navy, did some active duty time, retired from the reserves. I had a total of 22 years of service. Served on active duty as an operations specialist. Anybody that's familiar with that on the ship is like, I called it to really familiarize it, the air traffic controllers of the seas. So operating radars on the ships. And then as I transitioned into the reserves, I moved over into admin. So have served on the submarine tender. We assisted John in their endeavors, and they break down. We fixed them. In the industry, gas industry, there are a lot of similarities, as John alluded to. The teamwork, heavily regulated industry, so just like a big emphasis on safety. Very similar to the military. I brag to my peers and colleagues all the time that all the safety regulations in the gas industry has a foundation from the military. So definitely a big emphasis on that. Lots of opportunities. My background, I'm an educator by education, so you wouldn't think how my unique story, how I ended up in the gas industry is unique. I would say for someone who started out teaching second and third graders, and I ended up as a meter reader. I wanted to try something different. So got into the industry as an entry level employee, and moved through the ranks and became service specialist, which worked on all the facilities above ground, anything from the meter, the service line to the meter, and the meter inside to the inside of the homes, the customers' houses. Moved from there and got into the frontline supervisory ranks. Got a lot of opportunities, and I must admit, I was afforded that opportunity because of the military and the leadership that the military gave me in my background, and I was able to display that and got the opportunity based on that. Moved from there, worked in dispatch as a dispatcher, and kind of worked with that. So that's another area. Have to dispatch the work, dispatch the employees, move emergencies, answer emergencies, make sure those calls are answered, worked there for a while. And then from there, I moved into an IT project where I got to, design proof of concept and actually implement new software. So moved from there and got into emergency response. And we're all familiar in the military with the ICS and all the things that's incorporated with emergency response. Got to lead that area up for a while, and then moved into working with operations and running the entire field operations and the day-to-day operations with that, which consisted of managing employees and also managing regulatory work, making sure we're meeting deadlines, and make sure that operator qualifications are met with the employees, et cetera, et cetera. And then I moved from there until where I am today, which is damage prevention. So I do a lot of public relations, a lot of public information to public about safely using gas, also interacting with excavators and making sure that they're excavating safely. So again, that safety background is very important. A few different areas, and it's a pivotal in time because I'm a big proponent of gas, in in the media now, there's a lot of talk against fossil fuels, but natural gas is a clean energy. And not only is it a clean energy, um, there are a lot of programs out there with carbon capture and those innovations and research opportunities there to be a part of that. We have some programs going on with renewable natural gas. We actually have a couple of areas here in Chicago where they're converting waste, food waste, into renewable natural gas. So you're using that to keep from filling up the uh, waste sites, and then in that decaying naturally, and the methane going into the atmosphere. That's a lot of what has people have been against, but we're actually throw that food waste into this area, and then capture that and put it actually right back into our pipeline. And we advocate, for safer appliances. There's some innovation there, opportunities for research, and also there's projects out for hydrogen mixture, which hydrogen burns a lot cleaner and doesn't affect the atmosphere as much. Um, and that's just one level. But again, I'll get back to myself. I started in the entry level, or what some would classify as skilled trades. That's opportunity. If you have those skilled trades, there are pipe fitters, there are welders opportunities. If you like to fly drones, we have to patrol our pipelines and make sure they're operating safely by regulation. Those innovation now, instead of us going out into some of the remote areas where some of our transmission or distribution lines are, we actually fly drones and be able to patrol the lines that way. There are gas operators, where the gate stations where gas comes into the city. We have those who monitor those systems to make sure that the flow is right, the pressure is right. If there are any anomalies that happen with the line, they know immediately if somebody damages one of our pipelines, and you can pick it up on what's called a SCADA system, supervisory control and data acquisition. Those folks sit there. There's data entry with that. You could be a crew leader, lead crews, working on natural gas. There are also technical opportunities, engineers, several areas where engineers work in our company with data analytics, designing our infrastructure, and various other opportunities there. And also something that I got the opportunity to do also, my initial experience with training and teaching was in the Navy. Actually got that instructor training, and built on that as my small window that I did teaching in the elementary school. And then I got to the gas company and in the gas industry, and also got to do some training there. And still to this day, with our public relations, still I see the question. The public relations opportunity there. So I'll say, as John stated, you can fit in. There's somewhere to fit in the gas industry for everyone. If you think that, I may have this skill and I may not fit, there's an opportunity to fit. The one unique thing about all people who are in the military, we have those soft skills that the energy industry is looking for. Leadership, um, uh, those type things. So if you want to get into the gas industry, it's a very, very good place to be. And I'll stop there.
Thanks so much, Edwin. David, would you share some of what you see from the perspective of the American Petroleum Institute?
Sure. Thanks, Sean. And I think good follow to Edwin on the gas side. There's a lot of similarities. API, for those not familiar with American Petroleum Institute, we represent we're the largest trade organization representing the entire oil and gas industry in the U.S. So a lot of the work that Edwin's talking about applicable to the gas portion of and members that we represent, as well as the liquid side. Let me just step back, introduce real quick. Dave Merck, I'm the Senior Director of Pipelines at the American Petroleum Institute in the what we call our midstream segment, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit. My background, I've been at API going on 9 years, actually, in 2 days. And prior to that, worked for our regulator that oversees the pipeline industry, the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration. I was the director of field operations for 2 years. Prior to that, I had a long career in the Coast Guard, 24 years active duty. Retired in 2014 and went to work in the oil and gas industry, which is an interesting transition, but a seamless kind of transition. I'll explain why. So in the Coast Guard, I started out of the academy in drug interdiction and law enforcement. Did that for a couple of years on ship, and then I transitioned to what the Coast Guard refers to as our marine safety and security program, which is a whole different side of the Coast Guard, where we deal with commercial shipping, port terminals, and it's essentially moving product, whether that's liquid product, that's containers, it's moving goods, right? So a big part of movement of goods is liquid. That can be everything from liquefied natural gas to petroleum, oil. And so when I was a junior officer coming up in the ranks in the Marine Safety Program, I had to learn how to inspect ships, barges, anything that was moving product. I was responsible for. Learn to look at welds, look at power generation, look at steering system, everything that was involved in the movement of that product on ships. So take that, coming up the ranks, eventually made it up to senior officer position, then retired. But those skills that I learned very young, plus emergency response, oil spills from ships, very relatable and transferable to the oil and gas industry. So for me, it was an easy transition. And just stepping back again to why veterans, I think John and Edwin hit on some of the key things. Really want to emphasize the leadership piece. I mean, in the military, you learn leadership from day one, right? You're put in those positions that you're responsible for other people. The other big thing is safety culture. You know, when you're in the military, you learn to look out for the folks around you, right? It's a culture of safety, looking out for those who work with you and for you, and then teamwork's huge as well. So you automatically are attractable just from the standpoint of the skills that you bring, and you've grown in the military. So I think that's just it's very important that I feel like you kind of have a little bit of a leg up when it comes to transitioning into jobs and into the oil and gas industry. And then so stepping into now the oil and gas industry a little bit, and American Petroleum Institute, as I mentioned, we represent the entire oil and gas industry, and that's everything from kind of simplifying it, what we refer to as our upstream side of things, and that's pulling product out of the ground. That's liquid petroleum, that's natural gas. And so it's drilling, and I'm sure you've heard that. That's both onshore, that's offshore. You've seen that as well. And I'm in the space that takes that product that comes out of the ground and what we refer to as our midstream segment, and it's really transporting that product. So like I said, in the Coast Guard, I was involved in inspecting the midstream part, but by vessel, by ship, by water. So now it's, again, for me, it's overseeing the safety program for the American Petroleum Institute for pipelines, and it's moving product from being pulled out of the ground to refineries, to retail, to trucking stations, things like that. So I work in that middle space, which are the pipelines that are moving product all over the country. And the big cross-country pipelines, and told there's around 600,000 miles of of pipeline moving both natural gas and liquid petroleum products across the country. And then the space I think Edwin's probably most familiar with is kind of that distribution side, which is the other roughly 3 million miles of pipeline, or 2.5 million miles of pipeline. So in total, there's about 2.7 million plus miles of pipeline moving oil and gas from out of the ground, eventually into your homes, for those of you who have natural gas. So from a job standpoint, I think Edwin and John hit on a lot of it already. Very similar to Edwin, it's everything from, you have the need for welders for construction, you have the need for contractors to work on construction projects, you have people who need to drive trucks to move product, you have folks in, as Edwin said, in the SCADA control room side of things, monitoring leaks, monitoring the movement of products. You have folks who are involved in cybersecurity. Edwin hit on drones. So there's kind of an IT component. AI is becoming a really important part. Our industry uses data extensively. We do a lot with data from tools that we use to make sure pipelines are safe, for leak detection. There's so much data that's coming in, and our ability to kind of harness and capture and be able to really effectively use AI is becoming more and more important for our industry. So part of, as we're somewhat transitioning from a workforce perspective from, an aging workforce to now trying to attract a newer, younger generation in our workforce, we're trying to figure out what is it that would make it attractable, because we are competing now, right, for jobs in IT and things like that. So we need to keep continuing to look at how can we make our industry attractive. But there are so many opportunities in the oil and gas industry in all three segments that I talked about. In our downstream side, that's the refining side, and there's a lot of work involved in that too, and large scale export liquefaction LNG facilities that are exporting LNG all over the world. So a lot of opportunity. Again, you bring automatically, just with your time in the service, you bring a unique set of characteristics, and I just think it's an easy transition if you want to transition into energy. And the reality is, oil and gas is here for the long haul. It's part of the long-term mix. It's just the reality, the reliance and the need for a reliable source of energy, with natural gas in particular, is here for the long haul, because it's a global, energy is a global challenge. I mean, you have countries globally that are still using coal extensively, that are still honestly burning wood, that are using that as energy sources. And you're not going to just go from that type of source to a renewable. You have a transition fuel such as natural gas. So I think sometimes there's a focus on just the US, but we really need to think globally as to the importance of oil and natural gas, and bringing the world up, economically. So
Great. David, thank you so much. We're going to move on to Kevin, if that's okay. Kevin represents American Clean Power. And I think we need that entire mix. And so I think Kevin's going to be able to share some on the renewable side, which I do get a lot of interest of folks that are attracted to that space as well. Kevin?
Yeah, no, thank you. And just because I work in clean energy doesn't mean I didn't own an oil field supply company for a decade after I got out of the Army. So I am an all the above, and I've lived that. So I was a former infantry officer in the Army, deployed to Iraq. So, back when I had hair, I'm kind of like that, guy that keeps talking about the game we almost went to state, 30 years ago. I was only in the military for 4 years, and almost half of that time was deployed to Iraq. So it left an impression, but it was a while ago. So probably everybody on here has more time in service than I do. And, I'm happy with how much I got shot at. It was one less than what, my quota was. So I'm good. So my name's Kevin Doffing. I lead programs for veterans at American Clean Power. American Clean Power is the largest trade group for clean energy companies in America. The video that you showed, the first two veterans that talked were clean energy company friends of mine. Trung Lee works for Osceola out of Illinois in Chicago, and Travis Snells he's a senior finance at AES. And how I know Travis is I'm also the director of the Atlantic Council's Veterans Advanced Energy Project, which is a thought leadership deal around energy security and national security. And Travis is one of our fellows. So that was a fun little thing to see there. So American Clean Power, we're really, if you want to think about what the industry is, 90% of all new installed power generation last year was renewable energy. I'm in Texas. I'm in Houston. I've reached out to everybody that said they were in Houston or Texas. Feel free to drop me a note. That goes for everybody. 90% of the power generation that's been installed in the last 2 years in Texas is all wind, solar, battery. And if you want to think about it, batteries are just pipelines. They're just midstream assets. That's how I explain it to people. But at the end of the day, they're just power plants, right? A natural gas power plant is different than a wind farm. A solar farm is different than a wind farm. A battery asset is its own, Swiss Army knife tool. So they're all different. So, as you want to get into this industry is growing twice as fast as general industry. It's overrepresented by veterans. It's a great way to get in. There's a huge community of veterans that are aggregated inside of that I've been really privileged to lead across a lot of the big trade groups in renewable energy. And it's a huge growth mindset. It's a booming, fast growing industry. Honestly, that's why I left oil and gas, was because I wanted to be part of this new market segment that was just growing by leaps and bounds. Still smaller than oil and gas, but the growth is there, and that's kind of where I want to be. So that's my personal decision. I have tons of friends. I'm in Houston that work in oil and gas, and I love it. We need it. We use it. We're all the above, right? So there's three primary ways that people get into this industry, in my experience. The first, for junior enlisted, is craft trades, right? So those are the technicians, the people working for the manufacturers, people that are out fixing, turning wrenches and doing things. This is, if you're an E1 that can pass a drug test, please, you can start off making $20, $25 an hour plus overtime per diem. If you can just stand there and not get hurt. We will pay you so much money to do the basics. And inside your first 2 years, you could be at six figures in a lot of these traveling jobs and different things like that. So huge market opportunities. And that's just a really great way to get in. Now, I know that 50+% of even the enlisted that get out will utilize GI Bills. So if you're senior enlisted, junior officer, you're getting your college degree. Project management is typically how I see people getting into this, and that goes across a slew of opportunities that might not be named project managers, but asset management, project management, logistics, all the things that John was talking about. And we need everything, right? So we need every kind of finance. We need every kind of sales. I was a sales guy, right? So after I sold my business, I became a chief commercial officer for a maintenance company for utility scale renewables. Or as I would say, I ran an oil field services company for renewables, because it's the same thing. So, there's all these different opportunities inside this market segment. And, there's a lot of guys that come over from oil and gas. There's a lot of people that work in utilities. Wind and solar, predominantly a utility type of business. That's the type of mentality and culture. So I think that one of the reasons that veterans are so highly represented inside this industry is because there's a similar culture shift, and the nuclear industry was just bringing over Navy vets like crazy. And they showed me in one of the videos, a control room. Submarines just get you ready to be a vampire that lives in a remote operations control center. So, I mean, it's been a huge, influx of folks coming in. Battery storage is more like oil and gas. The volatility, the high returns, the risk profile, the wildcatting, a lot of that's very similar in our industry. Geothermal's coming up, but it hasn't really peaked, but it's really just oil and gas workers doing the same thing that they were doing with a larger borehole. The third thing that I see a lot of people come in, and I was just talking to one gentleman, some of the junior to middle officers that go back and get their advanced degrees, like an MBA, finance, they'll get into project development. Project development is just that, for oil and gas, it's a landman. For renewables, it's a little bit more diversified where you may have some like financial modeling, you're going to deal with community engagement, you're going to do siting and permitting, and you wear a lot of hats, but it's a great place that a lot of veterans get in because we interact really well, we self-start, and we can wear a bunch of those hats. So those are the three things. Behind them, I would say like safety, cyber are massive opportunities in the marketplace, along with logistics. But feel free to reach out to me. I told Rosa I'd try to keep it to 3 minutes. I think I went just over, so I apologize. And this is an amazing industry. I'd love to help you get into it.
All right, Kevin, thank you so much. And I'm going to go back and share my screen again. Hopefully I can do this well. I just want to kind of bring up the rear to say that the industry, regardless of the types of energy that's being supplied, whether it's renewable, whether it's oil and gas, whether it's nuclear, and we didn't even touch on lineman positions and the maintenance of the grid and the types of technician work that's needed so that both the transmission and the distribution system on the electric side is maintained. Nuclear, any kind of power generation, compression stations, anything that looks like a control room. There's a place for you here, and we support all of it. This gives you kind of a cloud view of the types of positions that are available. Again, there's tremendous opportunity. There's a home for every veteran that would like a position in this industry, regardless of the vast nature of the energy industry, and we encourage you to give it a strong consideration. As a veteran career coach, I work on the Troops to Energy Jobs program, and we want to just go through a bit of the resources that are available. They're free to you. My time is also free to all of you to help in whatever way I can, but we encourage you to go to the Troops to Energy Jobs website, where there you'll find a tremendous number of resources to help you with your exploration. And in the veterans that I work with, there's usually a couple scenarios that I have. I work with everyone from they have no idea what they would want to do after either being on active duty or they've transitioned and they're trying to find something that's more rewarding, more career focused, or they're laser focused on a specific type of position at a specific company. So I deal with the entire gambit. What the website can do is share a lot of information of possibilities. So depending on where you are in that journey, it can certainly give you a description of the career paths that are available and some key resources that we have. This is the landing page that you'll see. So down on the bottom to the left, you can hit the Veteran Career Coach button, and that'll send a notification to me that you're looking for some assistance. If you register on our database, which we highly encourage as well, that will also send a notification to me. And then I'll reach back out with kind of an introductory email, the types of services that I can provide, whether it's resume review, mock interview preparation, general thinking about your career journey and career transition. But that's how you get in touch with me. Uploading your resume. So we do highly encourage that everyone registers in our database. We have literally thousands of veterans in our database that is accessible by all of our military recruiters and hiring managers of the representation of the energy industry. In the utility space, we're representing 90+% of the companies in that space and continue to expand into things like oil and gas and the things that Kevin and David talked about. So encourage you to register on that database, and then the job board. So I checked it just earlier today. We have well over 15,000 jobs posted. One of the advantages of our job board is that these are active job postings. This is not a stale job board. It includes, it's refreshed every 24 hours. It has a very searchable feature. So as you hone down into what part of the country particularly, or what company, you can do some screens and you can pull up the jobs and find things that are interesting to that may seem interesting to you. Very, very useful. And I'll key on a little bit on next steps of how that can be a resource for you. So definitely, these are active jobs of positions that you can be filled in right now. just an exploration of the other resources that are available to you. So in terms of testimonies and videos, hearing from other service members of what their journey has been like. Apprenticeships, we get a lot of interest on apprenticeships. They are posted on the job board. There's also other programs that you can go into to try to give yourself an advantage in terms of applying for a position. We have an MOS translator. So this can take your rating and you can put it into the system that we developed, the database we developed, and it will spit out a listing of job descriptions in the vernacular of the energy industry of things that maybe you hadn't thought of, or maybe positions that you didn't realize were closely related to your military spouses. All these services are available to military spouses. Many times it is a collection, a family that needs to either relocate or go through the transition. And so we highly encourage and we work with military spouses to help them also find a place to land. You can connect with energy employers. So if you know which company you might want to search out, that's kind of the process that I recommend. We do have a list of folks that have been identified to us as points of contact, or they are officially military recruiters. And because they've been voluntarily identified to us, you're much more likely to get a response. And oftentimes these are points of contact that can give you more information, that can fill you in on what it's like to work, or maybe give you a heads up on the best way to go about applying for that particular company. I always stress that in order to get hired, you have to apply to a specific job or a specific opening at a specific company and go through their application, interviewing, and hiring process. But contacts within the company, whether it's using your network on LinkedIn or others, or going through our network of identified points of contact, can help you gain more information to see if that's going to be a right fit for you. We talked about career transition and roadmaps, compensation and benefits. These are very well compensated jobs. The benefit packages tend to exceed the general population. I know I can speak from firsthand experience. That was my experience. And then, as we said, finding those employers that can definitely have open positions where you want to be located. On the bottom, we look at, and there's a listing here of the types of careers. And again, we stress careers over jobs. These are stable companies. These are positions for the long term. You get your foot in the door. You can then grow a career, 30, 40-year career, depending on where you are in your journey. But whether it's an electric, natural gas, oil and gas, nuclear, renewable, or just a general business career, plenty of opportunities there. Okay, and then in terms of a path forward, so I tried to keep it simple because we do want to leave some sufficient time for Q&A if we have some questions in the chat. So in my work, I ask two basic questions of all the veterans that I work with, particularly if they don't know exactly what they want to do. What type of work do you want to do? Some want to stay as closely to what they were doing on active duty. Others want to get as far away from that. So having an idea of the type of work you want to do, again, the job board can help you identify positions that sound interesting to you based on the nature of the work. But what do you want to do? And then where do you want to live? Some want to just stay where they've established themselves, maybe at their last duty station. Others want to go back closer to family. But answering those two basic questions allows you to really narrow down your search to identify specific opportunities that you want to pursue. So we do encourage you to explore the free resources on the website and help you be able to answer that. What do I want to do? And then obviously you have to make that decision of where you want to be. Some are like, I'll relocate anywhere. Others are like, no, I'm moving to back to hometown in Iowa or wherever you may be from. So it's an important question to answer. You will need a resume. I think that's a logical thing that you're going to need. So that's where I can help tell you what some of the best practices that I've been seeing. Put some work into your resume. You're going to want to try to translate that into civilian terminology. I can help with that. We have some examples we can share with you. But what the job board does is by looking at the position descriptions, you can start to pick up on the keywords that you want to incorporate in your resume. Our resumes in the civilian sector are much different than federal. So if you've been pursuing or in a federal position, it may be 7, 8, 9 pages long. It's a different set of requirements. 2 sides are the general best practice. And again, we can help you try to get there. So making sure you update the resume. We do encourage you to register in the Veterans Database. Number one, that makes your resume available to our recruiting teams with our member companies. And then also, lets me be able to access that information as well. Searching the job board under a touchdown and then reaching out to me as needed. People use me for a variety of things. So I'm there to support you in whatever manner adds value to your journey. but definitely want to be there as a resource for you. So with about the 10 minutes, 8 minutes that we have left, we do want to see what questions we had in the chat. I saw 2 questions myself. One was on SCADA training. So SCADA, the data acquisition and analysis, some of those are technical jobs where you may have had electronics training in the military. Certainly all the companies that have SCADA systems have some internal training programs. I think Edwin touched on that. Most of the companies have some form of training, but if you have an electronics background, and then obviously, looking at the jobs that are open for a kind of a technician position or a supervisory position in that area, being able to connect the background that you have. So again, reach out if you want to explore the types of things that are available, but many of the companies offer specific training if you've got enough of the background to be able to start in that job. And then I saw the other question that I saw was on SkillBridge. Yes, many of our companies do pursue SkillBridge, particularly if they're located near a base. They post those jobs as open positions and would be on our job board. And then again, by reaching out to us, we can maybe identify some of the companies that are really heavily invested in that program, but it's really across the country. Many are seeing the benefits of SkillBridge. Obviously, you need the permission of your commanding officer and a scenario where that's going to work out. But folks are finding that program very advantageous, and many are trying to incorporate that into their pipeline to get some high quality, talented folks either coming off of active duty, but into their system. So those are 2 that I saw. I guess I'll just ask Kristen, who's
John,
yes.
there is another question. What is the best way to contact you, which you've answered, and everyone else who can help? Do you have, okay, so the last question was around line worker.
Yep.
Entering the lineman trade, and what could I do to prepare for the trade?
Yeah, there's it's different in different parts of the country. So again, once you can narrow down to the company that you'd like to work for, the region you'd like to work in. So for example, in some parts of the country, there are local trade schools or community colleges often host a program to get your initial lineman training done. And oftentimes that's a requirement to be able to apply for positions there. In other parts of the country, they run an internal, perhaps 4-year apprenticeship program. And so you may enter that particular company as a helper position and then apply for the line worker training program. But that company is going to give you all the training that you would need once you're able to apply for it internally. And so it's really dependent on where you want to live, the particular company you may want to work for. Like I said, the programs are available across the country, and many of them are pipelines themselves that provide basic line worker training and an apprenticeship certification that is very attractive for the companies, the utility companies that are hiring for those positions. But it's part of that strategy for where you want to live, what company you want to work for, that there's different routes depending on the access point or the way that particular company brings in line workers. Okay, any other questions, Rosa?
John, there was one other question about how to reach out to you. I added in the chat box the link to the Get Into Energy website where they can click on Veteran Coach and send you a quick email.
Yep, I get notice once you hit that button, a Veteran Coach, that I'll reach back out. And then when you register in the database, I check that very frequently, and anyone that registers on the database, I bounce that against any other points of contact. And if that's the way you've notified me, I reach out that way as well. Certainly, if this webinar is your introduction to us, we want to thank you for being here. And so we'll be certainly reaching back out to you to assist in any way possible. But those are the routes, troopstoenergyjobs.org or getintooenergy.org. Those are the 2 main access points for our resources. And I think my last slide here has some QR codes to get into both the job board and the website itself. So if that's advantageous for you, you got your smartphone handy, that's another way to get directly to those on-site online resources. Okay, well, I certainly want to extend my thanks for you taking the time this evening to join us. I particularly want to thank our panelists that were able to join us and for them sharing their background and their journey and some of the opportunities that they see from their vantage point. Again, this industry and this industry sector is vast. And there's opportunity regardless of the energy source. and we promote them all and we support them all. The process of finding a career is the same regardless of the specific technology or energy source that you're going to work on. So we welcome everyone. We will work with you if you haven't already made a decision of exactly where you think you would like to land. And I've seen people transition from electric to gas or from different parts of the industry throughout their career. Many times that's a welcome change for them to provide some variety on their journey. But these are careers within well-established companies. It's going to be around forever, knock on wood. And we encourage you to give it a look and let us know how we can support you in your particular journey on your career path. Any of the other panelists have anything to offer? We've got, I think, 2 minutes left. Any closing thoughts? I'll stop sharing to see if we have any final thoughts from anyone from our side that's joined us. So Kevin, David, Edwin, even Rosa, any final thoughts or recommendations for those that have joined us this evening?
We need you. Come join us. So drop me a note. I shared my information. Happy to help anybody. Rick was already good and put him in touch with somebody on SCADA for some cyber career opportunities. So just reach out.
Yep. And I'm available. I have a LinkedIn profile. Anyone needing the assistance or any advice, so catch me on LinkedIn.
Echo that. I'll post some stuff on LinkedIn. Thanks for you all and the invite to do this. I think it's incredibly important. And I would just add, we have over 600 members, a lot of jobs out there. And I think your point, John, of it's about careers, not jobs, and good paying careers in all of the industry, no matter what, oil and gas, renewables. I mean, the jobs are out there and they're good paying, stable jobs. So welcome vets. Come on.
All right.
Yep.
Okay, so thank you. We finished out on time, which is always an accomplishment with a webinar like this with a lot of panelists. So thank you again. Have a great rest of your day, and we look forward to working with you on your career journey. Best of luck, and let us know how we can help. Thank you all.